Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Tech Sharmit podcast. Today, I'm here with another special guest, Brady Marr, who is speaking with us today from United Kingdom. If I talk about Brady, then he has craved an impressive path in the IT industry, particularly within the world of financial planning and analysis applications. On the top of that, as an IBM champion, he is actively involved in community advocacy, sharing insights and best practices that helps others to unlock the full potential of IBM's powerful tools. So today we will dive into the journey that sparked his passion for technology and finance, and also we will discuss the milestones that shaped his career. But before we start the discussion, I would like to thank Brady for joining us today. And now I request you to please initiate the discussion by telling us something about yourself.
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and maybe share my experiences and see what insight that maybe I can provide to others.
Okay.
Uh, I was born and raised in the Texas Panhandle, so Amarillo, Texas. This is kind of my home, which is not really a hotbed for IT activity. There's business, but not like it's not like Dallas or Chicago or Minnesota or somewhere. It certainly is not the place where you think of, oh, I need to, if I'm gonna have an IT career, that's where I'm gonna go.
Okay.
Uh, and actually kind of maybe landed in this space, maybe in an odd way. I started off in at college, studying computer science.
Okay.
And, I took calculus one and calculus two. I took multiple programming classes. And honestly, I was making A's in all of them. And at some point, I kind of had an epiphany and I thought, I'm going to switch my major. I don't want to be sitting in front of a computer all day. So I actually switched my major to finance and got my business degree. And of course, here I am, 20 plus years later, and I, work in front of a computer a lot. I still, I'm in front of clients and people, but just kind of funny how it works out. And you kind of ended up, again, kind of more in the IT space, even though I kind of transitioned to want to be more in finance.
Okay. All right. So let's initiate the discussion with typically from your professional background. So could you please just tell us a bit about your professional journey? Like what were the initial few things that influenced you to start the career in IT industry?
Yeah, sure. So, my first job that I got, out of the university, really kind of put me on this course. And, I
Okay.
landed a job at a company called Anderson Merchandisers, which again, probably not a well-known name to a lot of people out there. Back in the day, they were a huge company. They were supplying all of the music, books, video, and some other merchandise to Walmart. And
Okay.
so basically coming right out of college, I got thrust into the whole big data atmosphere. I mean, I was forced to be able to handle the data from Walmart, which is, it's a lot of data. And, early on, I think within the first year there, the CFO asked me to, hey, they bought this software called a Datum, and he asked if I would go to the training for it. And he didn't know I had a big computer programming background. Anyway, so I went to the training and it clicked. It was kind of a nice combination of finance and IT programming, and basically the company was going to use it for their budgeting process. And that was really my first introduction into the to this space. And eventually, a Datum got bought by Cognos, and then eventually Cognos got bought by IBM. And so, again, I started off as a customer of IBM's more or less. And
Okay.
so again, 20 plus years later, I'm still, working within the IBM tool set. So, I mean, maybe to dive just a little bit deeper, I mean, what got me out of Anderson though is my original Cognos consultant called me up and said, "Hey, I'm gonna leave and go start my own company. Do you want to join me?" And honestly, I thought, oh, consulting, that sounds fun, but honestly, it doesn't sound like it's for me. As I told him, no, I'm good. I
Okay.
don't really think I want to do that. And I went home and told my wife that, and my wife was actually studying for her master's degree at the time. And so she was still a couple years away from getting her master's, and so I told her that, he called me and asked me to join him, and she's like, "Well, why don't you do it? It sounds like a great opportunity." And I was like, "Well, I don't want to be traveling and be on the road a lot." And she's like, "Well, so what?" She's like, "I'm studying anyway all the time." And she's like, "Well, how much money would it make? Would you make?" And I said, "Well, it'd pay me probably double of it with what I'm currently making." She's like, "Yeah, I think you ought to take it." So
Okay.
that got me into the consulting space, and eventually, again, left him due to some other circumstances. Basically, technologies were changing, and so moved off of the Cognos product and more into the TM1 and planning analytics space, and that's kind of where I landed at eCapital Advisors. And so
Okay.
I've been leading the team at eCapital Advisors, the planning analytics TM1 team at eCapital Advisors for 14 years now. Basically implementing this product at over 100 clients now. And
That's
actually, as of September of this year, so September 2024, eCapital was actually acquired by a company called ThoughtLogic. And so
okay.
I guess now, I'm actually the IBM practice lead for ThoughtLogic. And again, I'm very excited. ThoughtLogic's not a big firm. We got I think 250 employees, but kind of it's a good space. I'm super optimistic and super happy to be where I'm at.
All right. So it sounds like your wife has played a crucial role in your decisions, and she's very
Yeah, no
supportive.
doubt.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So let's talk bit about your expertise, because you are well versed in the financial planning and analysis applications. So could you please walk us through the process of requirement gathering for FP&A applications, and what are some of the key elements you focus in order to ensure a successful project in FP&A?
Yeah. The cool thing is like I said a minute ago, I've worked with like 100+ clients. So
Yeah.
honestly, there's probably not much I haven't seen. I've seen the way all these different businesses work and what they want to look at and how they want to forecast their data. So not a lot surprises me. That being said, I say this all the time is, every business is so unique.
Yes,
And,
right.
you know, I know all these EPM companies out there, they've all tried to put, blueprints out there that, oh, you just take our blueprint and you drop it in and it works. And, I just don't think that's the case. That's not my experience. Every company is so different. They have their own setup, their own
Right.
chart of accounts, they have their own department or cost center structures. They have their own way they want to report on their data. And so again, every company is unique. And so when me and my team, when we go into requirements gathering, I mean, I remind myself and I remind my team, I mean, we want to listen, listen more, talk less. I don't want to be trying to put a solution out in front of a customer that's not going to meet their needs.
Mhm.
I don't want to force something down their throats that says, hey, this is what you need to do, when that's not the way that their company works. So again, we try to listen more and talk less. And then otherwise, I like to get my customers talking. Again, it kind of goes to that whole listen concept is, tell me, I ask them questions. Tell me about your process. And then when they're done kind of talking, then I say, okay, show me some examples. Pull up Excel. Show me kind of what you're used to using. Show me the reports that you use on a day-to-day basis. And and honestly, when we're done with that, then I try to ask even more questions and say, all right, well, bring in the other users. You're the expert now. Let's bring in some of your other users that that maybe you get data from or that use some of your data. And so again, it really just comes down to just, I mean, up front in the requirement gathering. I mean, we just ask questions, we listen, we take notes, we think
Okay.
about the implications of that. And then finally, what I like to do kind of before we really dive into, transitioning from requirement gathering to technical design is I like to show them some examples, show them some what other clients are doing and get their initial feedback. If I show them like a dashboard or I show them a report and they say, yeah, that looks great. I'd love to see something like that here. It gives me an idea of, what works and what doesn't, and especially when we're thinking about like the end user interface, what's going to work for them, what are they going to like, and certainly giving them some examples, whether it's demos or again other stuff that other clients have done. I think it's a great way to just kind of get them thinking.
Yes. And I completely agree with you on this point that every company or organization is a unique, right? So it's not that easy to understand all those requirements, but the way you show the light on the listening capability. Yes, it is true.
Yep.
And especially it should be clear to all those like who wanted to start their career in the IT industry, because your answer is explaining as well as showing that how important this listening skill is in this particular
Yes.
IT industry. Not in fact in IT industry, in every domain, if you are not able capable to listen the things properly, then it might be a bit tedious for you and a bit difficult for you to design the things. So that's
Yep.
a good point you just shared with us. And now like I just would like to discuss your approach for the technical designing. Okay, so how do you approach technical design when working with FP&A applications, particularly when using the TM1 and planning analytics?
Yeah. So maybe contrary to, other IT tools and implementations, planning analytics is typically owned by the finance and the accounting teams. And
Okay.
so, again, both myself, again, I kind of have a little bit of mixed background, but I consider myself a finance person because, again, that's really where I
Okay.
got my start. That's my history. But when I'm designing a model, I'm thinking about it from a finance standpoint. I want my users to be able to understand and easily follow what's going on in the model.
Mhm.
And so that being said, again, I try to build that into my technical designs to make it to where when they open up their model, they see names of the cubes and dimensions that they would expect. So, I mean, they're expecting to see accounts and cost centers. We're going to name things exactly like that. They're expecting to see income statement and balance sheet. We're going to name things to where, again, it makes a lot of sense to a finance person to figure out where things are at. From a planning analytics specific standpoint, there's I like to say there's a fine line between two very different strategies. And one of the strategies that you see a lot of people do is they build like a single cube that does everything.
Okay.
And then the other strategy is what is maybe badly referred to as cube hell, where you build so many cubes, and again, you end up with this model with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cubes,
Yes.
and then it's even more hard to follow. So I like to kind of land somewhere in between there. And again, I find that's where the happy medium for our finance and accounting users, where you're not trying to cram everything into one cube, but you're also not building so many cubes that it's overwhelming. Again, try to build, make it to where the model is, again, easy to follow. And again, easy to follow from a finance standpoint.
Okay.
The other
And
piece that, again, maybe specific to the planning analytics side of things is,
mhm.
you know, within planning analytics, there's two concepts on moving data and creating calculations. One of them is processes, and one of them is rules. And you see this, very honestly, I can look at a model and see and look at how it was built. If it was built with a whole lot of rules, I can say usually a finance person has probably built that. If it's built with a whole lot of processes, I think, oh, usually an IT person has built that. And so, somebody like me coming from the Cognos planning background, coming more from a finance background, a lot of times people like me tend to use a lot more rules. Whereas somebody that maybe came from old school, that the predecessor to TM1 was called Applex, somebody that came from that area probably wrote a lot more processes. And again, to me, I don't care one way or the other. I like them both. They both work. To me, the big
Okay.
decision factor is, does the data need to be like moving real time? So if one of my clients enters a piece of data into their forecast, it should flow all the way through, and that way they can see the instant result in their income statement. If it doesn't need to be real time, like if it's something that, hey, the data changes once a month, that's more something from a process standpoint. And so again, that's when we're designing our TM1 models, that's one of the big things we think about is, let's not design based on what I think my skill sets are good at. I'm gonna design
Yes.
based on truly where I think the data needs to move and how it needs to move.
Yes. Okay. And if we talk about the role of TM1 and planning analytics in budgeting, in planning the budgeting, forecasting, and financial reporting. So how do you ensure that these model meets the diverse client need? Because as you mentioned, every client is unique. So how you make sure that everything is as per the plan?
I mean, I'd say this all the time. I not just got not because I have to, or not because it's my career, but I mean, TM1 planning analytics. I mean, it's an amazing tool.
Okay.
And there's no doubt the bread and butter of planning analytics is budgeting, forecasting, and financial reporting, financial planning. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that is the bread and butter. I mean, that's what we've done, the tool is done for 20, 30, 40 years now, and it
Okay.
still does it. And, but what I like to do is, and honestly, what I like to see is I like my clients to take their tool. I mean, you already own the tool, and let's use it outside of that. Let's extend it out to the, XP&A. Let's look at it from an S&OP or supply chain standpoint. Can you build other types of reports and dashboards, that maybe your operations team or your sales team will use? And again, like you said, every client has different needs, and the tool is not built just for one industry. It's not built just
Yes.
for the financial industry. It's not built just for higher education. It's not just built just for retail or distribution. I mean, I literally have, again, I've implemented this tool across every different industry and every size of company. That's the other thing I love about it is, small companies can use it, and even if they only have 5 users. And then,
Mm-hmm.
extremely large companies with thousands of users can use the tool as well. And it's not like overly complicated for one or the other to implement. Again, it's scalable, it's flexible. Again, it's a great tool, and I know that probably sounds like a commercial.
Okay. All right. And as you know, like as we all know, that this tool is playing a crucial role in this industry. So it leads a lot of training as well. So training clients on TM1 planning analytics is a unique part. One of your unique part of work, right? So what
Yep.
strategies do you use to ensure that every user is feel confident and they are capable with all these kind of tools?
So, like I said earlier, I'm a former client.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I got my start and I learned a tool similar to TM1 Planning Analytics, and so that being said, I'm very passionate about training. Like
Right.
I I want to enable my clients to build and develop a tool that they can own and maintain. Like I don't want them to have to rely on consultants or rely on having submit tickets to IBM. I want my clients to be the experts. And honestly, I want to see them out there presenting at user groups and IBM conferences on their own,
Mm-hmm.
because they are the experts. So that being said, whenever we kick off a project, the very first thing I try to do is schedule training, and I try to schedule the requirements and design workshops. And
Okay.
if timing works out, and again, timing doesn't always work out. And of course, we live in a day and age where, we're not always on site with the clients anymore. A lot of times we're working remotely. But if timing works out, doing a 1 week training course on planning analytics that their team would, their key users would attend is
Mm-hmm.
great. I would recommend doing that and then follow that up immediately the week after with the requirements and design workshops. And the reason I like to do that is, again, they can be hands-on from day one. They can take what they learned in training, they can apply it to what we're thinking about from a requirement standpoint. And then as we start the build process, we like to say that, we want our clients to build with us, shoulder to shoulder. And so a
Yes.
lot of times what that means is, maybe the first few weeks, me and my team, we're in there, we're building the dimensions, we're building the cubes, we're loading the data. But after a few weeks, then we start, almost we change seats and we let the client sit in the seat and drive and build things, and we watch and coach them. And
Okay.
again, the more that they're using the tool day to day and they're hands-on in the product, I mean, they're going to be just more enabled.
Okay. And in your opinion, like what are the most critical factors for achieving a long-term success in the financial planning and analysis with these kind of tool for analytics?
Uh, Probably two things. Probably the first is use the tool every day.
Mm-hmm.
You could probably apply this same thing to, working with, you know, home improvement tools like saws and hammers and things. It's like if you don't use it every day and you only pick it up once a year, that once a year you forget a lot of things and you're not used to how that works. I mean,
Correct.
planning analytics, or honestly probably any EPM tool, is, if you're not in there using it on a day-to-day basis, it's not something you're probably ever going to be an expert at.
Correct.
And so that's my first one. My second one is, and I think I said this maybe just previously, is is find other use cases. And this is exactly what I did in my career when I started back at Anderson Merchandisers is we had this tool again that we bought for annual budgeting. But I was
Mm-hmm.
also a financial analyst, and I had some roles and responsibilities to do things like, I had to do the commissions for our sales team every month and a few other things. And honestly, I made my life easier because I built a bunch of those other processes into the
Yes.
Cognos tool. And so that's what I would tell all my clients is you already own this licenses. Let's say a client buys 200 licenses. I mean, and they use it for annual budgeting. Great. I mean, we appreciate it. We hope your annual budgeting experience is great. But I also hope that you can take that license that you already own, you already pay for, and can we start doing like monthly forecasting? Can we do rolling forecasting? Can we do just like monthly financial dashboards and reports in the tool? Or even outside of that, can we take that outside the finance team and can we take it to the sales team or the ops team and say, can we use this tool and enable your sales team and kind of forecast sales, or can we do, supply chain planning and again use the tool for more than maybe just what you bought it for.
Okay. All right. So here I want to ask you one question. Like apart from these project, is there any other specific or unique project you have worked on in your career, like which you think that yes, this is the project which is quite unique for you?
Oh yeah, I could probably go on and on all day, but I know we only have like 30 minutes for this podcast. So
Yeah.
the one that I think I have it on my resume and probably on my LinkedIn page. One of them is back when I was at Anderson Merchandisers.
Mhm.
Um, the CFO came to me, and this is not IBM related necessarily, but the CFO came to
Okay.
me and said, "Hey, we need some thoughts on this mileage program because basically we've got 1,000 or 2,000 sales reps out in the field, and they submit these mileage allowance reimbursement forms every month to say, hey,
Mhm.
here's how much I had to drive from my home to the Walmart stores and things." And so I actually had to. He's like, "We're spending a lot of money here. I mean, it's like millions of dollars." And he
Okay.
asked me, he's like, "Hey, can you look at this, figure out ways that maybe we could try to save some money or make this process easier so that users aren't having to submit paperwork every month. There's just so many opportunities for error." And so, long story short, we kind of looked at some of the laws and figured out maybe just, some calculations on how can we just estimate how many miles they drive every month, based on where they live and based on where their stores are, things like that.
Okay.
And I mean, it wasn't like overly complicated or anything, but it ultimately saved a lot of time in the company. And I think ultimately saved the company about $1 million a year just in the time spent and the money that again people were submitting on the reimbursements. So that was probably one of my first, kind of pretty unique projects that I got. Again, from a TM1 planning analytics standpoint, again, I could talk all day about things
Yes.
we've done at clients.
Right.
One of my favorite stories though, I was at a fireplace manufacturer up in Minnesota, and they were basically doing some forecasting by SKU to figure out like how much inventory they needed to maintain or how much inventory they needed to ship out to their warehouses and things like that.
Mhm.
And it wasn't really part of the project. We had another project kind of that we were working on, but it kind of came up in a break time, and they were telling me about this process and just wanted some thoughts on it. And again, I said, "Well, show me what you're doing." And so they pulled up this Excel spreadsheet, and it was literally, I mean, it was thousands of SKUs, so products, items, at the lowest level you can imagine, and then by month, and then by warehouse, they were going through, and they basically had one full-time person that would spend most of her day every day for an entire month. Basically, that was her whole job, going through and just trying to forecast and make sure that they hit a days of supply target.
Okay.
And it one of the things they were doing, they were using within Microsoft Excel, there's a solver functionality that kind of
Okay.
goes through and on it tries to find like the most optimum level to hit a number. And
Mhm.
so I'm not the expert on that tool, but I saw what they were doing with it, and I thought, you know, I wonder if we can build something like that in Planning Analytics.
Yeah.
And so we had like a few minutes there, and I think we sat down, and I really wasn't intending on doing it right then, but I kind of started writing some a process to do this. And honestly, like we kind of got carried away, and like within an hour, I think I was like, well, let me show you what I have working and what I have here. And I pushed a button, and again, it basically looped through every SKU and then looped through every month and just basically hit that days
Yeah.
of supply target perfect for every SKU, every item. And that like, my jaw dropped, the client's jaws dropped, and we're like, oh my God. Basically, we within an hour, we replaced this tool that was taking them, almost one full-time employee every month.
Okay. All
So
right.
I
So
love to do that with my clients. It's just fun when you can do that, and fun when you can see that, you can make a difference.
yes, right. Okay. So you have worked upon various projects as and we all know that there are many things that we can discuss here, but I would like to ask my another question because we have limited time. So could
Yep.
you please tell about those people whom you credit as a key influence in your professional growth, or like what special qualities you have inherited from them?
Well, like you probably noted earlier, I mean, there's no doubt my wife has enabled
Yes.
my career. She's one that probably pushed me more into this than maybe what I was initially comfortable with. So
Correct.
she's probably the first and foremost one that I would note there. My my other one though, I'm gonna say is my planning analytics team. And so
Okay.
over my 14-year career at eCapital, now ThoughtLogic, you know, I've I've basically built my team kind of from the ground up, and honestly, it's just such an amazing team. And you know, I think compared to maybe some other consulting practices, we try to build a culture of collaboration.
Yes. Right.
And I mean, my team, I mean, we're on a Teams messenger, we're on email. If we run into an issue at a client, we're quick to email the team and say, hey, has anybody seen this issue, or does anybody have a solution for this?
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty amazing. Like within a few minutes, I mean, you get multiple responses, and people say, hey, do you want to jump on a call? I'll show you what I did this other client. And again, I not to say that maybe other companies don't do that, but again, I love our team and love how we can collaborate. And honestly, we try to open that up to our clients. With most of our clients, we have kind of what we call the phone a friend. If you remember the Millionaire show, the game
Yes.
show,
Right.
we like to say it's a phone a friend. Like, if you run into an issue, I mean, don't hesitate. Just reach out to us, call us, text us, email us. And, we'll jump on a call and we'll look at it. And, rather than you spending hours upon hours searching for a solution, let's just, I mean, see if we have something that we can share with you. And again, it has worked out pretty well. And again, I don't think I would be where I'm at without having a good team and a good
Yes.
collaboration atmosphere
Agree.
behind me.
Okay. All right. So now I would like to ask the last question, which is related to your hobbies itself. So, what hobbies or activities do you pursue outside of your professional work that keeps you stay motivated and inspired?
So yeah, I love this, and I love, honestly, I like to get to know my clients. I like to get to know my teams, and so it's not always about work. So I love this question.
Yeah.
A lot of my life right now, I've got relatively young kids. I've got, an 11-year-old and a 7-year-old. So a lot of my activities, my time right now, I spend, honestly, as a taxi cab service to my kids. I take them to their tennis lessons or their Cub Scouts, and we go camping, or we go to, take my daughter to dance. But I love being around them. It's just so much fun. Uh, Other than the kids, I love to travel, and
Okay.
that's probably one of the perks of being a consultant is, all those years I spent on the road, earning all those airline miles and Marriott points. I love to travel. Whether it was just with my wife prior to kids, or now with our family. Again, love to just go see different places and gain new experiences. And then in a previous life, I still run a lot, but in a previous life, I used to run marathons.
Okay.
And so I used to run a lot. And I still enjoy running. I don't, honestly, with kids and activities and other things, I just don't have the time to commit to 40 or 50 miles a week. But again, I used to love running, and I still do. I've ran my whole life, ran in high school. And so that's probably my getaway when I need to, when life is just stressing me out. Love to just, put my headphones on and, get out and go for a run.
Okay. All right. So thank you so much, Brady, for joining us today in this episode and for sharing your expertise related to financial domain. And thank you once again for joining this. And I hope you also enjoyed the discussion.
Oh, it was great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.